Howdy folks, welcome to Tone Chaser, the new name for my channel. After doing this channel for a couple of months now, I've got a better idea of what direction I want to take things in, and Tone Chaser seems to be a much more apt name, I think. So, my name is Timotora, and today we are going to be looking at my mix for Selenium Forest by Plini. And it's not the original track, it's one I recreated myself from the ground up. We're going to be looking at all the parts and going through it today, and essentially how I did it, and my mastering suite as well at the end, and as well as any other little things that I thought were pretty interesting during my time making this. So let's dive on in, shall we? Where better to start than at the beginning? So if we come down here, so straight away we got clean guitars. And it's basically these two lines here. Now if I go in and have a look, this one here, this is the one that's actually quite hard to hear. You notice it when it's not there, but this is what it is on its own. It's basically just a bunch of harmonics. Combine that with the other part. Together, you essentially get that intro. And all I've done on these channels is, so we got the archetype Plini here, and I'm using the Sunhead Dream Clean, apparently. And the Plini neural DSP plugin is pretty good. However, I don't think it's as good as their others. And we're going to go into a little bit more depth of this when we come to the gain channels and the lead channels, because I ended up not using it. And I'll explain why when we get to it. But for the cleans, it's great for cleans. It really is nice and warm and full. And what I did was basically just low and high pass. That's really all it is. If I solo this and bypass, there we go. If I press the right button, so it kind of tames the low end, tames a little bit of the highs, just kind of brings it in a little bit more boxy. But the main piece of it here is the reverb. If I just keep playing. So very in your face, very wide, very, you can see here I've almost maxed out diffusion and width. And it gives it that far away but still in the same room sort of feel, which is kind of what you want for this intro. And that is, I think if I remember rightly, is applied to, yeah, it's applied to both channels. And that's it for the cleans, actually. There's really not much else going on throughout the entire song, except when we get to this section here. See, I took out a couple of little troublesome frequencies that were just kind of clumping up a little bit, but other than that, not much more. There's the archetype Plini again, and this time using the Selenium Forest clean, you know, as you'd expect. And this is one of the presets that come with the Plini plugin. And if we have a look in there real quick, neural DSP, here we go. So we've got Electric Sunrise, and down here is Selenium Forest, and we'll come back to that. I have some thoughts. We'll come back to that. And this is essentially just a repeating section. It's just a repeating section that goes throughout the song and cuts out in certain areas, but it's there for texture and fills out the back end. And that's it for the cleans. Everything else, all of this up here, all of this is leads and rhythm gains. But before we get to those, I'm going to go down here and show you guys my drums. And then we'll have a look at the bass. And then we'll start looking at the lead guitars and whatnot. So, drums. What am I using? I'm using, if I drag it over, Get Good Drums. And I'm using the Modern Fusion kit with a patch I've actually made myself, and I think if I remember rightly, it's the let's get ready to rock. In fact, you know what? Let's have a look. It was Let's Rock, this one. So I used this one, and all I really did was change the amount of reverb on the snare, and overall just added a little bit extra to it, so it's not quite as dry and raw. Just letting it fit into the mix and gel into the mix a bit better. But other than that, there's really not much that I changed. It's the great thing about Get Good Drums, they really are plug and play. You just load it up, punch in your MIDI pieces, which I'll show you real quick. So a lot of velocity. This is the key to good sounding MIDI drums when it comes to making something sound real. You have to go in depth throughout all of this, and what I'll do later on in the show, later on in the song, I'll show you how I do this to save you a lot of time, because I do not go in and manually put this in. Occasionally, like these guys here, I will manually draw that in. You see, it's different every single time. But it kind of follows the same sort of idea. I'll do a little bit and then drop it off, and I'll copy and paste some of them, but then I'll draw out a different one here and there, just trying to keep it different every time. The human ear is very, very good at picking up that machine accurate repetition, and that's what throws people off when it comes to trying to get a good sounding drum kit. You need it to sound different every single time. It's just the way it is. So if I bring this back down, here we go. Sounds great. Sounds fucking great. I love these. I love this kit. I'm really, really impressed with it. It was the first time I'd used a Get Good drum kit was for this song. So, you'll notice here, I have 2 channels of it, and there's a big old block. Let's get rid of these so it makes it a little bit cleaner. So those 2 channels there, you don't need to worry about them. They're just volume automation. And I don't even do that much. In fact, I might not even do any if I remember rightly. I can't remember. But what I've done here, and this is something I do with the bass as well, and I'll go into the details of the bass, but a little trick I picked up over the years is this one is my main sound. If I load up my mixing console and go along to my bass, sorry, my drums, here it is. And it's doing its thing. Now, if I include the one below it, you'll notice not much happens except the kick is a little bit fuller. The snare is a little bit fuller. And if I mute the top one, super compressed. And that's the trick. That's really all I do for this. I'll have my main drum sound and I'll mix it in as I like it. I will then copy it over and compress the absolute bollocks out of it. And you see here, I'm just cranking it, absolutely cranking it. I want it to sound almost uncomfortable. And what I will do, I will listen to both of them at the same time, and my compression channel, if I bring this back up here, I will flatten it. Now I can't because I've got automation, but I will flatten it down. And then I will play the song and slowly bring it up until the point where I can just about hear it now. That's when I stop. You're not listening for that compression sound. You just want to kind of feel it change and notice it there. That's when you stop. And it just fattens out the sound within the mix, gives it a little bit more punch, a little bit more energy, and it works really well. It's a very subtle thing to do, but very, very effective. And I'll do this in every single song, no matter what it is, whether it's metal, jam stuff like this, or whatever. I will probably do that just because it adds a bit more life into the mix. And that's essentially my drums. I mean, there really isn't much more to it other than just, it doing its thing. And you can see all the parts here. Let's have a listen to see what this is. So listen over here. see down at the bottom, the velocity is going everywhere, right? So I can show you what I do for this, because this might save you a lot of time if you, like me, program MIDI drums. Highlight everything you want. Go up to MIDI, and you top. Now I don't think you can see this on my screen. No, you can't. So in the top, at least if you're using Cubase like I do, go to the MIDI option. So you've got File, Edit, Project, Audio, and then the fifth option is MIDI. Go to MIDI. Towards the bottom, there's an option called Logical Presets. In there is a standard set one. The very bottom option is velocity, random velocity, 60 to 100. And this is probably something I'll do an extra video on. But you select that, it'll randomize all your MIDI notes. I just squash them down so they're a bit more uniform together and bring the volume back up. Boom. Randomized velocity throughout your entire MIDI track. That one little trick takes 10 minutes to do an entire song. Saves you hours of doing it manually. Now, I think just for the sake of this video, I'll carry on for now. And I'll come back to that another time, and I'll do some more, how I structure my mixes. But for now, let's carry on, shall we? Let's look at the bass, because we had a little bit of guitars, a little bit of drums. For bass, I use Gin Bass, and it's a virtual instrument bass guitar modeled off the Nolly Getwood signature, which is one of my just favorite sounding basses. I love that crystal clear, punchy, sharp, tight, almost scooped sounding bass tone. I'm from a metal world, and that is just the best sounding bass I've ever heard. And I wish I had one, but I don't. So I use Gin Bass, and programming the MIDI for this was really fucking difficult. And as much as I love Gin Bass, the only thing I don't like about it is the slides. It's not very good at sliding. It has two options for this, fast slide or slow slide. And fast slide is what it is. It just goes and dips out or slides up. That's fine. The slow slide doesn't really work very well in my opinion. It's still a bit too quick, and it's like boom, and then it will drop. And it doesn't just go like I want it to. And I can't really get much use out of it, so I actually just use pitch shift. Not ideal, not the best sounding thing in the world, but you work with what you got. So here's the bass. Hear that? And to do it with. So I'll show you actually. Now, if I minimize that, you will notice I've got the exact same thing happening with the bass as I did with the drums. And it is the exact same thing, but with a few small differences. Instead of compressing the crap out of it, I have my main bass sound is up here. So I'll just play that quick. So pretty thick, pretty full. And it is. This is most of what you hear when it comes to the bass. But in the same way, I want to fatten it out. And quite a common thing to do when it comes to mixing bass, and this is again something I will do on every single song regardless of what genre it is. I will create the same sound again with the DI, so as raw as you can get it, and I will EQ the crap out of it. I will take off everything, and you only want this lower bit down here, so it's just a hum hum hum. So you think, well, what are you doing that for? Again, compress the crap out of it, make it flat, and make it very uniform and controlled. Because what we're going to do here is the same as what we do with those drums. We're going to have our main bass channel at the top there, which is up here. And we're going to start at 0, and we're going to slowly, while the song is playing, bring that fader up and thicken out and fatten out that bass sound. So I can show you the end result here. So this is it on its own. This is it with the bass. In fact, let me go over here. It's probably a better example. Just on its own. Now let's go back. Now with the extra. So it's thicker, fuller. And again, it's subtle. But you can and will hear it, and you definitely hear it in a mix, especially when you've got the drums playing. In fact, let me add my drums in. This is probably going to be the easiest way to show you guys how this small little difference makes actually quite a big change to the actual end mix that you got once you get going. So I'll take it out. So again, it's very subtle, but it just adds that little bit of fullness and thickness to it, a little bit more fuller in that mix. It's not changing the mix at all, really. It's just kind of thickening and fattening out. And that's what mixing is. Less is more in mixing. And little details like this go a long way. So, and when it comes to the bass, that's it. Other than, it playing its part, not really much else happens. Did a little bit of automation up here at the front just to kind of tame some of those higher notes underneath the solo. And speaking of which, let's go look back and have a look at the guitars. Oh, actually, no. Let's have a look at the synths first. We'll come back to the guitars because there's more guitars. So we'll do that. We'll come back to them. Let's have a listen to our synths. Now, for some reason, I don't know why, my piccolo doesn't want to be grouped up with the rest of them, so I have to do that manually, but whatever. Let's have a look, shall we? And again, look at the velocities. So. And we got vibraphone coming in here. Again, just adding. So that pretty much carries on for the whole verse here, if I minimize this so we can see a bit better. So that carries on throughout the whole verse while those riffs and drums are just kind of jamming away. Now we get to the break here, and this is probably the coolest part of the whole song. Well, it is really, isn't it? That big soaring lead line that just swells. This was actually really hard to mix because I found I could just layer it up and just layer and layer and layer. And it would just kind of lose its impact when it got to that peak. So I actually ended up toning it down quite a bit and just let the guitars do the singing for that section. I'll play it here. And again, this is just the synths. That bit is so fun to listen to. It really is. Let's have a look, because there's not a huge amount of this is really anything new. Something I will say, I am actually just using stock Cubase plugins, and these aren't very good. Halion is not very good, but you work with what you got. I don't have this vast library of synths and sounds just yet. Working on it, getting there, but at the end of the day, this is what I had to work with at the time of making this song, and this is what sometimes you don't need the biggest, expensive, most badass library you can get. Sometimes you just need to let it be what it is. And honestly, I don't think it's that bad. It's not great. I wouldn't certainly use it in a full production, but it does the job. It does the job for this. At the end of the day, this is just a backing track that I made for myself. So let's carry on a little bit. So towards the end, things get a little bit hectic. So we got a few little bits here. again. Very simple, very basic when you actually break them down. Now, these bits at the end, this is where it just kind of just goes a bit berserk, really. Whether this is 100, well, this isn't 100% accurate. It's pretty close, I think. I'd say around 90 to 95% accurate. Certainly sounds right to listen to when you're just listening to the track. So. Let's go back here and have a listen to this bit. So this is, we just had the strings, then we got the vibraphone. If I mute all of that and play just the vibraphone. Pretty cool. And very, very subtly, there's a piccolo in there as well, which I added. It was like one of the last things I added. Oop, clicking on the wrong thing. All of these parts combined make up your end explosion of synths. Very fun. And that just goes to the end. And that's kind of it, really. So we got basic strings at the top, some slightly harder hitting ones, just kind of fattening out for that, literally just that middle section. Pizzicato strings, kind of just doing its thing throughout. Vibraphone backing that up. We got a little bit of a synthy thing happening here in the middle. Let me do this section. Now, I actually didn't make a very good patch for this, but it's so subtle and so quiet. All it really needed was that boom, 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 boom sort of feel. So that's kind of all I ended up doing. Yeah. Barely there at all, really, so didn't waste too much time on it. But now's the big time to go into the guitars, and we've had a look at the cleans already. We did them at the start, so we're going to look at just the leads, and you'll notice up here I have 4 channels. 2 of them are muted and 2 of them, now the colors, just ignore them, that's just my reference for when I came to making my backing tracks. Purple bits I'd mute, the blue bits I would leave, that sort of thing. The red bits I wanted to redo, but I ended up just leaving them. So where to start? Let's start at the beginning. Solo. Just using the preset that comes with the Plini plugin. And if it's going to load anything, there we go. So I think I would have made a few changes to this, because this leads me on to something that kind of bugs me. I'm not a huge fan of the Archetype Plini plugin. I think it's good, and I think it has its place. I don't think the presets are very good at all. I think the, if we look at NoGSP, the riff, I think it's garbage. Honestly, I think these plugins, these presets, really not very good. They're certainly not accurate. And I ended up not using Plini at all because it just sounds too muddy, too muffled. There's not enough clarity, and it's nowhere near dry enough. Keyword here is dry. That modern, dry, low gain, cranked mids tone is what you want, and that's what Plini uses. very low gain, but with such high mids, as in high in the mix, it kind of fills in the gap that the less gain creates, and the Plini plugin just does not do it very well, in my honest opinion. So let me show you. Now, when it comes to the leads, like we're looking at here, it's okay. It's, again, not right, in my opinion. It's very mid-focused and still quite gainy. There's far too much gain happening here. And a part of it is the guitar and the pickups that Plini would have been using. I recorded this with a humbucker, and I should have done it with a single coil. I think that's kind of one of the main details that I've missed, for at least for this lead solo. Should have been on a single coil. Maybe roll off the volume a little bit to kind of get that kind of airy, not quite so full sound. But, you know, I'm really getting into the details and kind of getting a little bit nitpicky here. It's not bad. It's not bad. Like, especially the reverbs and delays. The reverbs and delays within Plini, lovely. Really, really, really nice. And yes, I did multiple takes, cutting it up and adding it all in, doing a little bit, note at a time sometimes. Because I am not one of those people that believes you need to play it through perfectly. Not in the slightest. You do what you need to do to get the take right. And I will defend that attitude to the day I die. If you want to be a good guitar player and you want to play it live and get the feel and the vibe in the moment, yeah, go for it. Never, ever sacrifice the quality of the recording for the sake of getting it right in one take. It's a fucking... That's pride. That is pride speaking. Don't fucking do it. Alright? You can say whatever you want. Your opinion is yours. Mine is not that. Mine is do what needs to be done to get the take correct. And if you have to take 100 takes to get that one bend right, do it in 100 takes. Do it in 110. Do 150 if you have to, just to be sure. You're probably wasting your time up to that point, sure. But you do what you got to do to get the end result you need. And this solo was really tough for me. Especially that lead bit in the middle, which I think we're coming up to. Yeah, coming up here. I couldn't play that perfectly, and it's not my song. It's just a backing track that I created, and in fact, most of the backing tracks are going to be for guitarists, so this isn't even going to be on there. This is just for this recording. I don't need to spend months and months practicing the crap out of this really difficult lead line. Yeah, it's a bit of a sore spot for me, I guess you could say. Perfectionism. I've seen and experienced many bands and songs never seeing the light of day because of perfectionism. Don't get it perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. Okay? And there's our solo. And it's a fun solo. I had a really good time playing that one, actually. And now let's get into one of those bits that I was talking about earlier. The Plini plugin. And how it actually kind of sucks with its presets. And I think maybe it's because Neural GSP, I think Plini was not but one of their first plugins that they did. Maybe the second or third one. And I think it was the first one where they tried to mimic or try to replicate patches and presets from songs that already exist. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case here. And I just don't think they were very good at it at the time. You know, no offense to Neural GSP, I think the work they put out now, like the 14 Cali, the Nameless, the Nolly, my God, they're amazing. They really are amazing. And maybe it wasn't the Neural GSP guys. Maybe it was Simon and Plini themselves who made the patches. I don't know. But either way, they're not accurate. Not really. And I will show you. So I spent a good weeks. It was weeks. It must have been best part of a month trying to get the rhythm sound right within the Plini plugin. Now, what do I want here? So, I'm going to solo just my guitars, except the clean. I'm going to turn the clean off. So we're listening to just these rhythms here. Okay? Now. Cool. So, I am going to go along here and do that. In fact, let me... There we go. Right. So you are now listening to the Plini plugin. You are now listening to the Fort in Cali. Back to the Plini. Back to the Fortin. Quite a difference. Let's listen quickly within the mix itself. I'll just jump between the two. Fortin. I was really disappointed with the Plini plugin because it was specifically for the rhythm sound for this song that I got it for. And I actually made this track 2.5 months ago and only finished it a week or two ago. And it was because of the rhythm sound that I spent so long just not getting it done. I did everything else and I just could not get... I tried impulses. I went on a proper impulse response binge trying to get that, and it's just not that. It's just the plugin. It's the amp. And I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it does this. I just don't think it does Plini's sound very well. I think it's a good plugin on its own. If you just want a nice sounding amp, sure, go for it. I think there's plenty of applications where this works really well. Just not here. I had to go to a different plugin to do this. And I love the Fort in Cali, by the way. Like, my God, that is such a good plugin. Get the Fort in Cali, you will not regret it. If you want that tight high gain or low gain, controlled dry rhythm, that is very, very popular and I certainly love right now. My go-to sound when I'm just jamming is the Cali, Fort in Cali. Love it. But, yeah, I ended up using it to make this song. I think I still have the... Let's have a look, actually. So we got big lead. I'm pretty sure so I used the Plini for the leads. Speaking of which, let's go listen to the cool bits, shall we? These red bits down here, they're the ambient parts. And here's the main melody. And this is just an octave higher above it. So I can show you real quick. So, lots of reverb, lots of delay. This, underneath it, if I mute it on its own... Same thing, just an octave higher. That's what this is over here, and that's what this is at the end here. Pretty straightforward. Again, another octave there, another octave there. Really not much more to it when it comes to those. The rhythms on their own, let's have a listen actually. So I'm only going to go forward using the Fort in Cali because I've literally kept the Plini tracks up here purely to show you guys. And add the drums, bass. I remember when Plini first put his original teaser of that up on his YouTube channel, and it very quickly popped up on 7string.org many, many years ago now. Just this handheld on his phone, filming his screen, playing that section. Obviously, the full band. And I remember hearing it long before any releases, before he put out any songs. And I was like, my God, that's the best thing I've ever heard. And it was so good. I was there, Gandalf. 3,000 years ago. But so let's break down this section, because it is, it's the peak of the song. So what have we got happening in here? Well, let's listen to the drums. First, let's actually reset everything. Drums. Here we go. Pretty solid rock track. Let's add the bass. Very cool indeed. Let's add the synths. Now, let's have a listen to the guitars just on their own. They're surprisingly weak on their own, actually. It's the synths and the bass all kind of rocking up together that really kind of makes this swell. Ooh, I've actually got I've missed a muted bit there. Let's do that. Let's have a quick listen to the leads, shall we? So, here is our main lead. Here is our main build-up, and the two underneath them are octaves above. So I'll listen to all of them, why not? So, just on their own. A lot of pick noise on these ones, actually. Something I thought was quite cool, the last two notes on the octave high version actually come down and join up with the main lead sound on its own. So if I mute the main lead, yeah, just so it's not quite so ear-piercing right at the end. Nice little touch. I was quite impressed, actually, when I realised that's what he was doing. And from there, we get the full thing. Very cool. So there's a lot of riffs, and we've pretty much gone over the whole song at this point. The only thing left is that big solo at the end. Pretty tricky, actually. I took a little time to learn this. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn that off. I just wanted to look at it. Let's go back and look at it again. lots of delays, lots of trailing delays. And I mean, the solo is what it is. It's a pretty cool solo, very Metallica-esque actually. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just me in my head, but reminds me of Kirk Hammett. So what can I say? And that's it. That's actually it for the song. That's all the parts. We've gone through essentially everything. If I expand her out and let's have a big old look at the whole thing, shall we? Let's close this. So we have our drums down at the bottom, duplicated up just to add a little bit of, so we can slowly bring in and subtly bring in our compression channel underneath it, with our main channel being above. These bits here are just a hi-hat for when in the backing track to keep time during those sections. Clean guitars at the bottom here. All our ambience and lead guitars here in the middle with our riffs up the top. Bass, main channel up the top there with the DI compressed and completely gutted, so it's just the low frequencies. And again, brought up underneath the main channel above it just to fatten it out, with all our synths above, just each doing their own thing. And there is the song. We're done. The only thing really left for us to look at is my mastering channel, which we can do. I use Slate Digital, and I have the Access All Pass because it's 10 quid a month. I would rather pay 10 quid a month for their entire suite of pickup plugins than I would Netflix any day of the week. So that's what I do. And something I do quite a lot is just have the virtual channel mixer. I think it's really nice. It's so subtle, but it's such a nice little saturation and fullness that this channel strip here adds to the mix. Very subtle, very, very subtle, but it's just a little bit of fullness around what you're hearing. Hard to explain, but it is what it is. This channel here, and again, just a reminder, we're looking at my master now. So this is my master channel. First thing that goes into is this virtual channel thing. I use it on the USA. Put up to around just shy of 4 decibels, so quite a bit actually. Probably could turn it down a little bit, but I go by ear rather than by numbers. And if it turned out to be 12 and I thought it sounded best at 12, I'd leave it at 12, even though that's too high. So bass cut. This is all this is doing. Just cutting everything below just shy of 43 hertz, and to kind of bring a little bit of that low end back in after cutting out the very low end of it. Just a little bit of drive here, just kind of thicken out the fullness of the whole thing. So that's all I do there. After that, compressor, and the auto release is one of my favorite parts of this plugin. That's kind of the main reason I use it. So if we, it's just taming that low end. Just taming that low end a little bit. Very, very nice. Now, here we have the main piece going on. So this is the mix final, the multipass by Slate Digital, and you can load. It's like a modular unit that you can load anything into. Very, very clever. And I use it a lot for the transient shaper because I think it's a great little feature that they do. And it's just, again, adding that saturation and making the whole thing gel together. When you add transient shaper to the whole mix, you're not just kind of adding frequencies to just the bass and just the guitars individually. You're doing it all together, and it all kind of flows together, and it fits together and just brings it together in a way that is really, really nice and what I like doing. Hear that difference? It just adds clarity, adds, again, more fullness to it, and sparkle and shine, and clarity is the word I use for it. Really like that plugin. It's a great plugin. And from there, that's essentially it. I have my FGX mastering suite, just to, again, bring up the levels. And what we're looking for is, in this middle section, 15 to 14 LUFS, or RMS as they call it here. But what I actually do, I have this plugin here, because getting accurate numbers at this stage in the mix is really important, and this is a really, really great plugin for doing that. Definitely recommend it. It's free. You can buy a pro version, which gives you a bit more features, but this tells me what I want to know and what I need. So the things I look for are down here. So true peak, this is the main thing that led me to this program. I wanted to know my true peak because the actual peak within the Cubase mixer isn't 100% accurate. I forget the way it works, to be completely honest. I'm certainly not the one to explain it, but it's almost like it snapshots in time and gives you an average. And it can be a little misleading. Sometimes it tells you you're peaking when you're actually not, or vice versa. So I just, forget that. I'm not interested. I'm going to find the numbers myself. That's where this plugin comes in. And if I just let's go back to the loud section. Here we go, in the middle. So down here at the bottom, it tells you your true peak and your short-term max. And these are the numbers I'm looking at. I want these to be around maybe 14, 13, somewhere around that. And I just don't want this to reach 0. That's the only thing I want. There we go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything. How long has this video been? Wow, nearly 50 minutes. I'm surprised you're even still here. This has been a really good, fun experience for me. Definitely a new type of video for my channel. Let me know what you guys think, if you like knowing this sort of stuff, and how I've created this track and how I will be moving forward creating my other track. I've got more songs coming, and I will be doing behind the mix videos just like this in them, with this new brand of tone chaser for the channel. That's why I wanted to go into the details here. The difficulties I had with the Plini plugin, it wasn't the right tone, and finding it with the 14 Cali and just the sound for the bass and the sound for the drums and the leads and all of this sort of fun stuff. This has been a really, really fun experience, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think, share it around. I love this stuff at the end of the day, and I think you guys do too, If you're not subscribed, do subscribe, become a tone chaser, and I'll leave it there today, and we'll see you again in the next one.